This will be another true crime case stories episode, and today's stories are specifically about women who were targeted by male predators. As I always emphasize in every crime-related episode, South Korea is still a relatively safe country. Gun violence is non-existent, and gang activities are under control too. You can go out and about late at night without much fear, and you can even leave your phone on the table as you go to use toilet at a cafe. For the hard crime targeting women too, South Korea's record is not particularly higher than the average of OECD nations, even though it's showing the upward trend over the recent years. But whatever the statistics and numbers, it is an undeniable fact that women are often an easier target to various forms of crimes, especially that's based on sexual motivations. Today, I collected some stories from or about unfortunate women who were pursued by creepy male predators. All of them are, fortunately, near-miss cases, and none of them include any graphic situation. But as a disclaimer, if you are particularly sensitive about the subject or have a trauma, today's episode may not be for you. So, here are 5 allegedly true stories about women who were targeted by male predators. As always, handpicked, translated and narrated by your host, Anthony. Last February, I got a part-time at a local bakery shop. On the first day, a male customer came past 9 p.m., bought some buns and bread, sat himself at the table in the shop, and ate them, slowly, for over an hour. Nothing unusual, other than he sat towards the floor-length glass front of the shop, even though the bar table in the shop faced the wall. I thought it odd, but I was too busy learning the new job and could not really give him anything more than a passing thought. The man returned the following day and the day after, about the same time, and did the same routine. On the 4th evening, when the man returned to the shop, the colleague who was handing the job over to me called me from the storage room to help her. She then whispered to me in a low voice, "That man was keep looking at you with a weird smile when you were working around the display cabinet. I won't be around from tomorrow on. Will you be okay by yourself?" It was a bit creepy, but I didn't want to believe it was anything too serious, and assured her I was fine. The man kept returning to the shop about the same time, and would sit facing the front of the shop and smile into the air. He must really love bread from the shop, I thought. On the 6th day on the job, work was slow past 9 p.m., and my boss went back to a flat above the shop, leaving me in charge by myself. And well, the same guy came, hung around till about 10:30. 11 was closing time, so I got on with cleaning and was about to bring the bean bags out, when I got a call. It was my boss. She told me not to come out and wait inside. She was checking on surveillance camera and found a man standing right up the side wall of the building and peeping inside. Boss told me to stay put till she come back. She did, with her husband, who shooed away the strange man away. I myself called my older brother in to escort me back home. Following day, I came to work an hour earlier to check on the previous night's record from the surveillance camera. The peeping Tom was the same man who came to the shop every night. Feeling chills, I checked the previous day's records, and there he was every night standing outside and peeping in after he left the shop until the shop closed. My boss worried about me and told me I should do what I thought was the best for myself. I decided to quit the job there and then. I felt too paranoid to go out for a good 1 month afterwards. When I finally recovered from the fear, I paid a visit to the bakery to say hello. My former boss told me that the man did return on the day I quitted the job too. He looked around and asked if I didn't work there anymore, and left without buying anything, not to be seen again. After the chit-chat with the boss, I bought a cake and a coffee and sat at the bar table. And then it suddenly dawned on me why the man always sat facing the front of the shop. He was looking at me the whole time, reflected on the floor-length window. This happened in December 2009. I have a year older brother. He was then living by himself, attending university away from home. Came December and his uni term finished, but he claimed he could not come back home because of his part-time work. One day my concerned parents tasked me to visit and check on him, if he fed himself all right, if his place was kept tidy enough, etc. It's a bit of an old-fashioned son and daughter dynamic, but on my part it was a chance to have a getaway to a bigger town, so I went without a complaint. It was just passing 9 p.m. when I arrived at brother's lodging. The whole area around the university seemed eerily quiet and dead in the vacation season. Many shops, restaurants, and student lodgings in dark. Brother's room was on the 2nd floor in the 3-story lodging and without an elevator, so I was carrying up the heavy jars of a homemade food from Mom when a guy came out from the room on the 1st floor. He clearly wasn't a uni student, looking well over mid-30.
"Visiting the guy upstairs?"
His manner of speech wasn't exactly charming, so I dryly said, "Yes."
"He's gone out just now,"
he said. "It's okay, I have the key," I said. I called brother, and indeed he was out to have dinner with his friends. "Wouldn't take long," he said. So I put away Mom's food away in the fridge, tidied the worst of the mess inside, and was surfing the internet when somebody knocked on the front door. I thought it should be my brother, and was about to open up, saying, "Is that you?" But my gut feeling stopped me. "Is that you?" I asked again. But the person outside kept fiddling with the doorknob without a reply. My brother wouldn't make this type of prank. The face of the 30-something guy popped up in my mind. He was the only one who knew I was here. I called up my brother and explained what was happening. He assured me he was near and would come quickly. But while I was still on the phone, the small window above the kitchen sink cracked opened, and a low voice whispered,
"Open up! It's chilly outside!"
I screamed and threw slippers at him. The guy got mad and rattled the window as if to break it. Just then, I could hear my brother coming up together with his friends. The guy seemed to be surprised to suddenly face several burly young men and quickly retreated, mumbling something under his breath. Apparently the guy downstairs was the son of the landlord. Emotionally unstable and jobless, he lived on his parents' back and had a history of molesting girls. I was so traumatized to sleep there that my brother and I slept in the 24-hour sauna nearby that night. We didn't press charge, but brother moved out in the following month. At least it taught me a good lesson, never to open the door without checking who is outside. When I was 23, I shared studio flat with a friend. I worked full-time and came back home often late after frequent overtime work or drinks with colleagues, while my friend had a lot more time in her hand, still seeking for work. On weekends, I usually visited my parents to wash clothes and get some free food from Mom. One weekend, I came back from my parents with plenty of Mom's dishes. They were a bit too heavy to carry up to the flat all at once, so I took the food up first, leaving the bag full of fresh clothes in the car. I took my time a bit to put food in the fridge and came back down to fetch my clothes. And they were gone. The bag full of my undies. About a week later, there was yet another after-work drinks with the colleagues. It finished much later than usual, and a female colleague whose home was nearby suggested I could crush at her place. I took a kind offer and even called my roommate to let her know that I wasn't coming back. But I was seized by the inexplicable urge to go back home. I have to go back was all I could think. So took a midnight taxi back to my flat. When I arrived, my mate was getting ready to go out herself. Since I wasn't coming back for the night, she planned to meet some friends, to have a drink and go to a midnight sauna. I told her to have fun, and went straight to bed myself. I usually sleep like a dead man, especially after a drink or two. But that night, I woke up from some noises. It was my roommate, whispering, "Hey, get up! Hey!" I got irritated to have my slumber disturbed, and shouted, "What? What?" Mate covered my mouth and hushed me down. "I think there is somebody in our balcony," she said. We used to play that kind of practical jokes and pranks all the time, but somehow that night I got an instant chill creeping up from the tip of my toes. I quickly rolled my eyes to the balcony, and indeed, there was a large dark shadow against the light from the street lamp. In a matter of those few seconds, all sorts of thoughts passed through my mind. But I gathered myself, jumped up, and quickly put the latch on to the balcony door. With that, the dark shadow moved with a loud rustle and jumped down from the balcony. My flat was on the first floor. We didn't even dare to open the balcony door to check until police officers arrived. When they checked, indeed the window was opened and the insect net was removed. The police said we were lucky. Lucky? What lucky? Being broken in and got almost burgled lucky?
Well, when a guy breaks into such a small studio flat, usually it's not the monetary gain they're after,
officer said, and I had to shut my mouth. When we were left alone again, my roommate told me what happened. As mentioned, she planned to spend the night at a sauna with her friends, but her period suddenly started and she had to call it a day. It was about 4 a.m. when she came back, and by the time she had a shower and went to bed, it was not quite 5. She was just playing a game on her phone when she heard a thud from the balcony. and she saw the sliding balcony door crack open and quickly close again. It was then when she woke me up. For a time afterwards, we made sure we never leave the other alone at night. Even though the landlord installed security bars to the balcony windows, we didn't dare to leave them opened even in summer. To this day, I always find a room on at least a second or higher floor. I'm small, but rather curvy girl, as they say. 4 years ago, I worked for a small company in Kasan Digital Complex in Seoul. Time was about 7 and dusk was setting. I was on my usual route to the metro station. Now, the pavement around that particular block are very narrow, unproportionally so, considering tall buildings and heavy foot traffic. The width was barely enough for 2 people to walk side by side, and that meant in rush hours, people basically had to walk along in 2 single files, one line of people walking up and the other walking down. So I was walking down the road, talking to my mom on the phone, asking what was for dinner, I needed some meat to boost my energy, etc. When I felt a quick, hard grab of my breast. My mind went off for a second. I looked back and saw a middle-aged man in his suit just walking past me down the opposite direction, with his hand slowly moving back down. Sheer bafflement turned to embarrassment and then to rage. I ran chasing after him with my lunchbox bag in my hand. I shouted, "You barking bastard!" and flailed my lunchbox bag to the pervert's back, followed by giving a kick to his shin, followed by the second flail to his face. The man tried to block my attacks, but there was no stopping me full-on rage. "You perv! Get a hard-on by grabbing random breast, huh?" I yelled and repeatedly flailed him. I think he knew he was the guilty one and didn't attack back. Instead, he ran across the motorway. But I wouldn't let him escape that easy. I grabbed on his jacket, kept hammering him with my bag. I never knew I had so many swear words in me. My bag was already torn open, and my lunchbox and cutleries flew all over the place. "To the police, you bastard! I'll put you in a jail!" I hung onto his jacket and hair and kicked his leg. But the sneaky bastard managed to slip away and once again ran across the motorway and sprinted away. I think I dropped on the ground and burst into a loud cry a while. The sheer sense of being violated was uncontainable. Tears and cry I could not stop, even as I picked up my lunchbox, bag, and other stuff scattered all around. About a week later, another female colleague talked about a middle-aged man had tried to grab on her at the bus stop, which she stopped by giving him a good kick. To everybody's relief, the pervert was not reported seen around the block ever since. That's already 4 years ago. But I still remember that disgusting grin on his face as he reached his hand out my breast. My only regret is that I couldn't drag him to the police. A decade ago, my parents ran studio flats catering local uni students, and I often worked as the manager or more a hand for all works there, especially during vacations. The flats were rather well secured with security barred windows, state-of-art door locks, etc., so the flats were particularly popular among female students. And there was this female student tenant who moved into one of the flats 3 months prior. And in those 3 months, she had already asked to change the door lock password a dozen times or so. Technically, she could do it herself, but it seemed too complicated to follow the instruction, and still called me in every time. It started getting a bit annoying, but I complied. But she returned my help with a growing suspicion. Somebody seemed to keep breaking into a place, she said, heavily implying that it could be me. Heck no! As the landlord, we did have the master key that could open any of the flats, but we could never think to use it unless in some exceptional or inevitable situations. My parents intervened and assured the tenant that I wouldn't do anything like that. But that wasn't the end of the story, of course. One day she ran to us again, outraged. Apparently, she did set some booby trap earlier that day as she went out. A small piece of paper pinched between the front door and the frame, and a corner of her duvet subtly folded in a certain way. And voila, when she came back just now, she found the paper fallen on the floor and the duvet unfolded, a sure sign that somebody broke in. She was convinced it was me, and nothing could persuade her otherwise. By now, even my parents seemed to give me a suspicious look. I had to prove my innocence. The only 2 surveillance cameras were facing the parking lot and the main entrance, and didn't help in this case. It would be a costly business to install another one, so instead I set my digital camera hidden in a box to record the ins and outs of her flat. It was far from the ideal setup because the memory card would get full every 2 hours, and the camera needed to get charged by the same rate too. After 3 days of that, I had it enough, and such is my luck that the next incident happened on the 4th day. This time, it was a police that knocked on my door. He asked me to accompany up to the tenant's flat. Inside the flat were all over glitters. I guess it was some sort of glittery makeup, and it was smeared all over the walls and floor. Before the tenant went to visit her parents for a few days, she apparently set another booby trap by smearing glitter makeup all over the doorknob in the hope to catch more proof of breaking in. And the intruder, as if laughing at the attempt, made a mess of her place. On top of that, her shower seemed just to have been used, and the soap was puffy and soft, soaked in the water. Somebody clearly wanted to make it evident that the place was broken in. The police then checked through my room, the doorknob, computer keyboard, water tap in the bathroom, and even the toilet flush handle. They found another trace, of course. Even then, I had to follow them to the police station and make a statement. I must say it really was a dirty feeling to be in that position, even though I didn't do anything wrong. Now, pissed and desperate, I went through the entire 3-day worth of recording from the camera I set up. Nothing on the first day. On the second, the tenant's boyfriend was captured entering a flat at about 11 p.m. and nothing more on the third day. I brought it to the police. And it all turned out the dirty work of the girl's boyfriend. His goal? To scare her enough to make her decide to move in with him. For all those months, he'd been carefully working on his plot, gradually leaving more and more clear sign of intrusion, and when his girlfriend talked about her suspicion and anxiety, he would discreetly fan it further by telling her about all the horrendous murder-rape cases. That invariably ended with, "Stay with me for the night if you're so scared." Fully trusting her boyfriend, the tenant told him all about her booby traps too, and it only gave the creep of a guy more to play with. And at the police station, he played out the role of an ardent boyfriend, giving her a hug and all that. My God, I'm a man too, but he is disgusting. In the end, the guy was prosecuted, and the girl took a leave of absence from her course. Hi, it's Anthony here, and thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, even though my female audiences might have felt more spooked than entertained. I'm sure there's definitely something I could not fully understand as a man. What do you say? Do you feel safe enough in day-to-day situation where you live? Is there any particular precautions you take? If you enjoyed my work, please give the thumbs up in a comment, and please consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet. If you like horror, paranormal, weird stories, I'm sure you'll enjoy it here with the never-before-heard stories straight from Korean web communities. If you'd support me more directly, I also have a Buy Me a Coffee account. The link's in the description. Buy Me a Coffee supporters enjoy an early access to my new content. Or, if you'd prefer, there's also a super thanks option right here on YouTube for a small donation. Thank you. Until next Sunday, stay safe and take care.